Good evening, viewers. You have tuned into the news on Sansad TV with me, Bhawna Nayar. Over the next 30 minutes, we bring you all the top national and international stories. First up, as always, the headlines this Friday evening. Voting for 16 Rajya Sabha seats concludes in Rajasthan, Haryana, Karnataka and Maharashtra. Cross-voting in Karnataka and Rajasthan. Prime Minister Modi inaugurates the headquarters of the Indian National Centre for Space Enhancement and Authority in Space. Asserts that like the IT sector, India will play a global role in the space sector as well. Government guidelines to protect children from misleading advertisements take effect. Violators to face strict action. Surrogate advertisements also banned. Industrial production increases by 7.1% in April. Electricity production up 11.8%. Mining production by 7.8%. Sri Lanka takes steps to deal with economic crisis, creates the 2 new ministries to deal with crisis. A quick look now at some more important stories of the day. Coal Ministry finalizes action plan document for 2022-23. Action plan focuses on 15 crucial areas like grey hydrogen and energy transition. West Bengal Assembly election session begins. Government to introduce bills to remove governor from the post of Chancellor of all government universities of the state. Heads of missions from 13 countries to interact with BJP President JP Nadda on Saturday. Regulator IRDAI permits life insurers to launch products without prior approval. Greater leeway in pricing insurance covers in line with market needs. Passenger bus services between Bangladesh and India resume with the flagging off bus from Dhaka to Kolkata. United Nations appeal for $47.2 million aid to provide life-saving assistance to crisis-hit Sri Lanka. European Central Bank considering raising interest rates by 2 to 5 percentage points for first time in more than 11 years. 5 Marines on board US military plane killed in crash in Southern California. US House panel investigating January 6 insurrection at US Capitol blames former American President Donald Trump. And ahead of World Day Against Child Labour, call for more residential schools and allocations for child welfare schemes. And now the top story of the day. Voting for the Rajya Sabha elections concluded on 16 seats in Maharashtra, Karnataka, Rajasthan and Haryana. An interesting contest is underway on 1 seat each in Rajasthan, Haryana, Karnataka and Maharashtra. Voting was held from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. for 6 seats in Maharashtra, 4 each in Rajasthan and Karnataka and 2 in Haryana. The counting for Rajya Sabha elections in Maharashtra was delayed after the BJP raised objections to votes cast by 3 MLAs of the ruling Mahavikas Aghadi MVA alleging violation of rules. In Haryana, the BJP sought the cancellation of the votes of Kiran Chaudhary and Bibi Batra, stating that 2 Congress legislators violated the conduct of election rules. A BJP delegation of union ministers complained that the 2 Congress MLAs showed their ballot papers to unauthorized persons after marking them. Moving ahead, Prime Minister Modi on Friday inaugurated the headquarters of the Indian National Centre for Space Promotion and Authorization in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, to promote innovation and private investment in the space sector. Addressing the inaugural function, the Prime Minister said the government has initiated reforms in the space sector and opened it up to the private sector. He expressed hope that like the IT sector, the space sector will also play a leading role globally. The Prime Minister said in the 21st century, space technology will bring a big revolution.
सरकारी स्पेस संस्थानों का सामर्थ्य और भारत के प्राइवेट सेक्टर का पैशन जब एक साथ जुड़ेगा तो उसके लिए आसमान भी कम पड़ेगा. Even sky is not the limit.
Prime Minister Modi also launched several development projects at the Gujarat Gaurav Abhiyan program in the tribal area of Navsari. Unveiling development projects worth 3,050 crore, the Prime Minister said they would make lives of lakhs of people easier. The Prime Minister asserted that Gujarat has witnessed rapid development in the last 2 decades. The project is expected to benefit people of Surat, Navsari, Valsad and Tapi districts of South Gujarat.
बीते 2 दशक में जो तेज विकास हुआ है, सबका विकास है और इस विकास से पैदा हुई नई आकांक्षाएं हैं. इस गौरवशाली परंपरा को डबल इंजन की सरकार ईमानदारी से आगे बढ़ा रही है.
The government issued new guidelines to curb deceptive ads, including ads that target children and make false claims to lure consumers. The guidelines also make due diligence mandatory for releasing advertisements. The Consumer Affairs Ministry notified the guidelines. It also banned surrogate advertisements and called for greater transparency in showing advertisements. The guidelines have come into force with immediate effect. Surrogate ads are pseudo-advertisements that promote another product, like promoting alcohol on pretext of soda water or gutka on the pretext of cardamom. And on this news, let's now go over to my colleague Vishal Dahiya for more on the story. Welcome, Vishal. First of all, I would like to ask, this story has a very good significance. What do you think? How do you analyze the significance of these new guidelines on advertisements?
Yes, Bhawna, indeed, these are very important guidelines which have been brought out by the government with respect to, misleading advertisements. Although there were a set of rules which were already in place, but a bit more clarity and perhaps a bit more push was required. That is why these set of guidelines which were released earlier today, and they're pretty exhaustive when we look at the extent to which these guidelines go ahead and look deeper into the world of misleading ads, and they put in place a lot of safeguards out there. In fact, if I read from the guidelines, they say that the advertisements are forward from exaggerating the features of the product or services in such a manner that children are misled about any particular product. In other aspects, the disclaimers which we hear with every advertisement, in these cases also, it has been clearly pointed out that disclaimers should be in the same language in which the claims have been made in that particular advertisement. And also, the checks and balance part, the penalty part of this particular issue is also really important here. The manufacturers, the advertisers, and those who endorse these products in these advertisements, a stiff penalty has been put in place. For the first offence, it will be around 10 lakh rupees. For the subsequent offence, it will be another 50 lakh rupees penalty. And for the endorsers, there will be a ban of 1 year in the first instance, which can then be extended to 3 years as well. And these, these guidelines which have been put in place do indicate clearly that in terms of misleading advertisements, the government's idea here is to ensure that the consumers have the access to real information, the authentic information about any particular product, and they are not misled into buying or going in for any product or service which might be detrimental to them. Bhawna?
All right, Vishal, thank you for that update. So this was the new norms that had come up to curb ads that target children and the surrogate ads. Moving ahead, now news from across the nation. Prime Minister Modi inaugurated the AM Naik Healthcare Complex and Nirali Multi-Speciality Hospital in Navsari on Friday. Addressing the occasion, the Prime Minister said in the last 8 years, the government has made efforts for the all-round development of the health sector of the country. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on Friday visited training institutes in Vietnam. India has extended $1 million for a language and information technology training facility. It is aimed at enhancing language and information technology skills of Vietnam's air defense and air force personnel. The Supreme Court dismissed several petitions seeking special counselling to fill up 1,456 seats in NEET PG 2021. These seats have remained vacant after the stray-round counselling for All India quota. The bench said that the quality of medical education cannot be compromised as it will affect public health. The Supreme Court refused to direct the Centre and the Indian Nursing Council to conduct additional mop-up rounds to fill up the vacant seats in nursing courses in Delhi for the academic year 2021-22. The admission process for nursing courses in Delhi was to end on March 31, 2022. And Delhi COVID cases reached 7,584 on Friday. The number of patients under treatment has increased to 36,267. The national rate of recovery is 98.70%. Under the nationwide anti-COVID-19 vaccination campaign, 194.76 crore doses have been given so far. President Ramnath Kovind, who arrived on a two-day visit to Himachal Pradesh, attended the 6th convocation of the Central University in Dharamshala. He presented gold medals and degrees to the meritorious students. And now let us look at some more stories from the world of business and economy. Auto, home and personal loans have become costlier with banks and other financial institutions increasing interest rates following the repo rate hike by RBI on Wednesday. ICICI Bank, Bank of Baroda, Punjab National Bank and HDFC Limited are among those who have raised the lending rates. Industrial output grew 7.1% in April on better performance by power and mining sectors. Data released by National Statistical Office shows manufacturing sector grew 6.3% in the first month of the current financial year, while power and mining sectors expanded 11.8% and 7.8%. Investors lost nearly rupees 3.11 lakh crore as the BSE Sensex crashed over 1,000 points on Friday. It closed at 54,303.44, while the Nifty plunged 276.30 points to settle at 16,201.80. Kotak Mahindra Bank, Bajaj Finance, HDFC and Reliance Industries were the top losers, while Asian Paints, Dr. Reddy's and Ultratech Cement registered slight gains. International oil benchmark Brent crude climbed 0.45% to $123.62 a barrel. Meanwhile, gold prices saw a marginal decline to settle at Rs 50,793 per 10 grams. Prices of silver also saw a slight drop to close at Rs 60,914 per kg. The Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, IRDAI, extended the use and file procedure for most life insurance products, allowing insurers to launch new products without its prior approval. The relaxation will result in improving ease of doing business for insurers and expand choices for policyholders. And Fitch Ratings on Friday revised the sovereign rating for India to stable from negative, citing downside risks to medium-term growth. Fitch forecasts 7.8% economic growth for the current fiscal from April 2022 to March 2023. Slipping into a short break here. On the other side, the first edition of the collection of Shakespeare's plays to be auctioned at Sotheby's. All this after this short break. You stay tuned to Sansad TV.
India has become a major contributor to international maritime security and its evolving norms.
India has once again turned towards the seas and is destined to emerge as a resurgent maritime nation.
Why is the Indo-Pacific maritime space so important?
This has happened partly because of the rise of China.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching the news and time now for all the main developments from the Russia-Ukraine war front. A court in separatist-controlled Donetsk People's Republic sentenced 2 British citizens and a Moroccan man to death for fighting on Ukraine's side in the conflict with Russia. The 3 men fought alongside Ukrainian troops and surrendered to Russian forces weeks ago. The court found them guilty of taking action towards a violent overthrow of power, an offence punishable by death. They have a month to appeal. Reacting to the verdict, the British government said it was deeply concerned with the death sentence for the 2 UK nationals. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's spokesman said that they will continue to work with Ukrainian authorities to secure the release of any British nationals who were serving in the Ukrainian armed forces and are being held as prisoners of war. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that foreign companies which left Russia will regret their decision. He said it was not a threat, but because Russia is a country with great potential. Putin also indicated that exodus of foreign firms from Russia was evidence of US domination over other Western states and economies. An EU embargo on Russian gas imports would destroy the European economy. Hungary's Prime Minister has argued. Viktor Orban told public radio that without price caps in place on fuel, some basic foods and retail energy, Hungarian inflation has accelerated to 10.7% in May, would be running at 15 to 16%. US Senate Foreign Relations Committee passed a resolution urging NATO to quickly admit Finland and Sweden in a sign of bipartisan support from lawmakers. Democrats and Republicans on the committee approved the measure supporting the expansion and urging other NATO states to swiftly admit the 2 Nordic states by voice vote with no objections. The governor of Ukraine's eastern Luhansk region says battles are going on for every house and every street in the city of Severodonetsk. He said that Kyiv troops currently control an industrial area on the edge of the city, which has been focus of Russia's offensive in recent days. The city of Mariupol is at risk of a major cholera outbreak as Russia struggles to provide basic public services to residents of regions it has occupied in Ukraine. The UK's Ministry of Defense has said Ukraine suffered a major cholera epidemic in 1995 and has experienced minor outbreaks since, especially around the Azov Sea coast, which includes Mariupol. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that when Peter the Great founded his new capital, St. Petersburg, no European country recognized it as Russia. He added that in founding St. Petersburg, Peter the Great was taking back and reinforcing territory. Putin claimed that it looks like it has fallen a present-day Russia to take back and reinforce as well. Putin also said a country is either sovereign or a colony, and there is nothing in between. Time now for some more global updates. Thousands of protesters marched in Buenos Aires to voice their opposition to the government's deal with the International Monetary Fund. President Alberto Fernandez agreed in March to refinance a debt of $44 billion to the IMF, allowing the country to avoid a loan default. The deal involves measures like spending cuts and has caused friction between the executive branch and social and political organizations that believe the agreement will bring more hardship. Argentina has an annual inflation rate of nearly 58%. China on Friday called the theory that the coronavirus pandemic may have originated as a leak from a Chinese laboratory as a politically motivated lie. The World Health Organization recommended in its strongest terms, yet that a deeper probe is needed into whether a lab accident may be to blame. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson also rejected accusations that China had not fully cooperated with investigators, saying it welcomed a science-based probe. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and his New Zealand counterpart, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, pledged to work together with Pacific Islands nations on climate change and national sovereignty. The two leaders met in Sydney on Friday, with Ardern becoming the first foreign leader to have met Albanese in Australia since he won the elections late last month. A man opened fire at a business in western Maryland on Thursday, killing 3 people before the suspect and a state trooper were wounded in a shootout, authorities said. The Washington County's Sheriff's Office said the 3 victims were found dead in Smithsburg and the 4th victim was critically injured. The suspect fled in a vehicle and was tracked down by Maryland State Police. The suspect and a trooper were wounded in an exchange of gunfire. At least 7 people died after landslides partially buried several villages in the southern region of Guangxi on Thursday. Days of rain left hillsides waterlogged and prone to slippages. 7 people were confirmed dead in the landslides, 1 was missing and at least 1 person was pulled out alive. Authorities issued warnings of heavy rain in nearby provinces. Ecuador, Japan, Malta, Mozambique and Switzerland were elected non-permanent members of the UN Security Council on Thursday for a 2-year term. The newly elected members will take up their new responsibilities on January 1, 2023 and will serve till December 31, 2024. Here's the report.
Running unopposed on Thursday, the 5 candidates, Ecuador, Japan, Malta, Mozambique and Switzerland, will replace outgoing non-permanent members of India, Ireland, Kenya, Mexico and Norway. A candidate must obtain the support of 2/3 of the UN member states present and voting at the General Assembly session to secure a non-permanent seat on the Security Council, regardless of whether the candidacy is contested or not. This means that a minimum of 129 positive votes are required to win a seat if all 193 member states are present and voting. Member states that abstain are considered not voting. The UN Security Council has 15 members, 5 of which are permanent ones: Britain, China, France, Russia and the United States. The 10 non-permanent seats of the Security Council are allocated by geographic region, with 5 replaced each year. The Security Council is considered the most powerful body of the United Nations. The Security Council, which is tasked to maintain international peace and security, can make legally binding decisions and has the power to impose sanctions and also authorize the use of force. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Moving ahead, the first of a series of hearings examining the 6th January 2021 insurrection at the US Capitol was held on Thursday. US House investigators laid out their case at the hearing. More details in this report.
Breach of the Capitol! Breach of the Capitol! I need to...
The U.S. House committee that is investigating the 6th January 2021 attack on Capitol Hill showed a violent video of the siege and clips of testimony examining the weeks beforehand in which former U.S. President Trump claimed widespread fraud in the election he lost. The committee is piecing together details of how the attack happened and how to prevent it from happening again. The hearings include video of police officers being brutally beaten and right-wing extremists leading the crowds into the Capitol. The committee conducted over 1,000 interviews with people connected to the siege and collected over 140,000 documents. They will use the evidence over 7 hearings in June to show how the attack was coordinated by some rioters among the mob that broke into the Capitol and interrupted the certification of President Joe Biden's victory. The hearing featured never-before-seen video testimony from Trump's family and close aides, many of whom were interviewed by the committee remotely. The panel started by showing a video interview with former Attorney General Bill Barr, who said he told Trump at the time that his fraud claims had no merit. The panel also showed video testimony from Trump's daughter Ivanka Trump, who spoke to the committee in April. Ivanka Trump told the panel that Barr's declaration affected my perspective. The riot left over 100 police officers injured, many beaten and bloodied as pro-Trump rioters, some armed with pipes, bats and bear spray, charged into the Capitol. At least 9 people died during the rioting, including a woman who was shot and killed by police. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And now one of the surviving copies of Shakespeare's first folio, the first edition of the collection of its plays, is about to be auctioned at Sotheby's. Without it, some of its most famous works would have been lost, and this copy in particular has its own history. Take a look at this report.
This is one of the surviving copies of what is known as the First Folio, a collection of 36 plays by William Shakespeare, published in 1623, 7 years after his death. Out of the 750 copies, less than a third are still accounted for, and less than 20 are privately owned, according to Sotheby's. The first edition is also the only official record of 18 Shakespeare works.
The Shakespeare First Folio is without question the most important publication in the history of English literature. Without this book, no Macbeth, no Twelfth Night, no Winter's Tale. About half of Shakespeare's plays were first published in this volume.
The book on display at Sotheby's in London will be auctioned next month. It is expected to fetch up to $2.5 million. Another copy was sold for $2.75 million by auction house Christie's in 2016. And more than its contents, the winning bidder will also own the history of this copy and its previous owners. Missing pages were replaced with facsimiles, annotations were made, and drinks spilt, leaving some stains. Because it was printed by hand, some letters are misaligned, some spaces are missing, and page numbers are sometimes wrong. Here, pages go from 307 to 38. There are also some amateurish verses by someone called John Fraser of the 17th century on an empty page. According to Sotheby's, the book was first bought in early 17th century by the Gordon family of Scotland. Titled Mr. William Shakespeare's Comedies, Histories and Tragedies, this folio will be auctioned in New York City on 7th July. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And time now for all the sporting action. Starting with badminton, the Indian challenge has ended in the Indonesia Masters Super 500 tournament. PV Sindhu lost in the quarterfinals of the women's singles draw. 4th seed Sindhu was defeated by 5th seed Ratchanok Intanon from Thailand. Intanon just did not allow Sindhu to get into the match, winning it in straight games 21-12, 21-10. In the men's draw, Lakshya Sen too was unable to make it to the semi-finals of the Indonesia Masters Super 500 tournament. Lakshya lost his quarter-final match to Zhou Tianchen of Chinese Taipei in 3 games. 3rd seed Zhou won 21-16, 12-21, 21-14. In cricket now, South Africa's middle-order batsman Rasivande Dosane has credited IPL for his team's win over India in the first T20. Though Vande Dosane played only 3 games for Rajasthan Royals in the IPL, but he counts his experience of watching close games from the dugout as invaluable, something that helped while chasing a huge Indian total of 211 in first T20 international. Vande Dosane scored 75 of 46 balls in the first T20 against India. Moving to chess now, Indian maestro Vishwanathan Anand's campaign at the Norway chess tournament suffered a setback after losing to Azerbaijan Shekhriyar Mamediyarov in the 9th round. World champion Magnus Carlsen shot into sole lead with a win in the 9th round. Carlsen has 15 points. Anand is 3rd in the standings with 13 points. In football now, Egypt sorely missed injured captain Mohamed Saleh as they slumped to a shock 0-2 defeat by Ethiopia in 2023 Africa Cup of Nations AFCON qualifying. A strain ruled out the prolific Liverpool scorer being fully fit. Ethiopia are 108 places lower than Egypt in the world rankings. And now about boxing. 6-time world boxing champion Mary Kom has been ruled out of the 2022 Commonwealth Games after she injured herself in the first round of the 48kg trial semi-finals. Mary Kom was forced to withdraw midway through her Commonwealth Games 48kg trial against Neetu after sustaining a leg injury. And that's all we have in this bulletin. To keep yourself updated, stay tuned to Sansad TV. Till then, goodbye, namaskar.